Hello everyone, welcome back to our video class here at CSEC Math Tutor. Today we are talking statistics and we are going to pay some attention to the range, the quartiles, and the cumulative frequency curve. Our objectives for today are to look at the quartiles from raw data, so we're going to do some calculations there, to complete a cumulative frequency, to draw a cumulative frequency curve, and finally to use a cumulative frequency curve to answer some questions. So let's begin. In a survey of households, the number of children was found to be 415. These numbers that we have here in the table. And we want to determine Q1, Q2, Q3, the interquartile range, and the semi-interquartile range. And what these mean are the Q1. Q1 represents the first quartile or the lower quartile. Q2 is the median, and Q3 is the upper quartile or the third quartile. Now these have some other meanings that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but before we can talk about the quartiles, we must first mention the range. And what exactly is the range again? The range is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value. So we're going to calculate our range by writing down the highest value minus the lowest value. So looking at our data, the highest value in this data set is 7, and the lowest value is 1. So 7 take away 1 gives us 6, and this 6 is the range, and what the range is an idea of how far the numbers are apart from each other. All right, so that's what the range is. It gives us an idea of spread meaning that how far the numbers are apart from each other. Now that we have done that, we can talk about finding the median. And so we're going to put these numbers in order from lowest to highest. So let's write them in order from lowest to highest. First, we start with 1, and there's another 1, and then there is a 2, and then there are some 3s and some 4s, and then there is a 5 and a 7. And once we've written them out, then we need to count and check that we have all of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. We have all of them. And now that we have all of them, we can work on finding our median. Now, median is the middle number, which is our Q2. So Q2 is our median. And how do we find our median? We need to see which number is in the middle position. So there are 10 numbers. So we want 5 numbers on one side and 5 on one side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers on one side here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the median would fall exactly in between those two numbers. So 5 numbers here, 5 numbers there, and the median would be in the middle here. That would be our Q2. So what number comes between 3 and 4? We take the mean of those. 3 plus 4 divided by 2, which gives us 7 over 2, and that gives us 3.5. So our median here is 3.5. Now let's look at our Q1. Q1 is what we call the lower median, and that is the median of the bottom half of the data. So in this part of the data, this is the lower half of the data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in that half, and we see here that the median for that is 2, and so we can write down over the median to be 2, because 2 is the middle number in this section. We can also look at the upper median, which is our Q3, and the upper median, when you look at the top half of the data, we realize that the middle number here is 4. So this is your Q1, this is your Q2, this is your Q3. And the upper median here is, as we have it, 4. So we have our median, which is 3.5. We have the lower median, which is 2. And we have the upper median, which is 4. And these are numbers that tell us what the middle number is in the data. what the middle of the bottom half is and what the middle of the top half is, and they give us an idea of how our data is spread out. We can also calculate the interquartile range. So interquartile range is given as interquartile range simply as Q3 minus Q1, and Q3 here is 4 minus 2, and we get that to be 2. And then we can find the semi-interquartile range, which is the semi-interquartile range, which is simply to say Q3 minus Q1 over 2. And in this case, we have 4 take away 2 over 2, which gives us 2 over 2, which is 1. All right. So here we have calculated our median, which is 3.5, our lower median, which is 2, our upper median, which is 4, and those correspond to Q1, Q2, and Q3, and then we can use these values to work out the interquartile range and the semi-interquartile range. This is what we can do with it for raw data. When it comes to a group distribution, we cannot find these numbers as easily as we can with raw data. So we need another technique to find them. That is, how does the bottom half of the data behave? How does the top half of the data behave? What is the range? What is the interquartile and semi-interquartile scores? So we need a group distribution to do that. When we're using a group distribution, we need to calculate something else, which is the cumulative frequency, and draw the curve and use that curve to figure them out. The cumulative frequency is a running total of your frequency. So to work it out, we start with our first frequency. Here our first frequency is 5. And we're going to just add our frequencies and move along. So we're going to take this 5 and add it to the 18 and say 18 plus 5, and that gives us 23. And then do the same thing, 23 plus 23, and that gives us 46. And then 46 plus 22 gives us 68. And then 68 plus 11 gives us 89. So let me tidy this up and do it again. Remember, we start with our first frequency. Our first frequency is 5. So we add 5. We start with 5, then we add 5 to 18. 5 plus 18 is 23. 23 plus 23 is 46. 46 plus 22 gives us 68. And 68 plus 21 gives us 89. 89 plus 11 gives us 100. So we round it off there. In order to draw our cumulative frequency curve, we need the upper boundaries and we also need our cumulative frequency. So the upper boundary and the cumulative frequency correspond to our XY points that we're going to graph. And so to find our upper boundaries, remember, we take the upper limit and simply add 0.5. So these are our upper limits. We add 0.5 to them and we get our upper boundaries. So this will be our X and our cumulative frequency is going to be our Y. All right, now let's look at our scale for our graph, 2 centimeters to 5 units on the horizontal and 2 centimeters to 10 units on the vertical. So 2 to 5 on the X, 2 to 10 on the Y. Let's look at our graph here. Now, let's go back and notice that our squares start at 20, 21 to 25. So we can start our curve at 20. Just put a little break here and start at 20. So 2 centimeters to 5, that gives us 25 here. And then 30 and 35 and 40 and 45 and 50. It's important to pay attention to your scale. Usually when CXC gives you a graph to draw. Somebody has already drawn it to make sure that it can fit on the paper. And so you need to look at your paper and see what direction you need to turn it, whether landscape or vertical, as in this one, to make sure that when you draw your graph that it fits. Our scale on the y-axis was 2 centimeters to 10. So let's put that in. So here we go, 10, 20, 30, 40 here, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So we're using the full paper. Notice that I didn't start this x-axis from 0. If you had done that, it wouldn't be able to hold the entire data for the x-axis. So you need to start it at a number close to what the first group is. This is 21 to 25. So if I start it at 20, then it would hold everything that I needed to hold. Now the first point is 25.5 to 5. And let's talk about the scale again. Remember, it's 2 centimeters to 5, which means that the tiny boxes, each of these tiny boxes, the 2 millimeter boxes, each one would represent a half. So 25.5, this is 25. So 25.5 is this first small line after 25. And we go to 5 and we mark our point. Let me put them in red so you probably can see it better. And remember, you use a tiny dot or you use a small x to mark your point. 30.5 to 23. So 30.5 to 10, 20, 21, 22, 23. That's somewhere there. 21 to 3. Actually, it's a bit more. All right, there we go. All right. And then our next one, 35.5 to 46. 35.5 to, this is 45. 45, so 46 would be here. Next one, 40.5 to 68. 40.5 to 50, 60, 68, somewhere there. And 45.5 to 89, 80, this is 90, so 89 would be here. And then our final point, which is 50.5 to 100, goes all the way up here, right on the top of our graph. Now that we have put in the points, we need to put a smooth curve through them. And remember, it's a curve. It's called a cumulative frequency curve, emphasizing curve. And you cannot use a ruler to draw a curve. So you must use your free hand to put a smooth line between the curve, between the points. So I'm going to start here, doing it on the screen. Never done this before. But the idea is the same when you're doing it on the paper. You start with your first point and you keep looking at the next point. And as long as you keep looking at the next point, then it should come out nice and smooth. There we go. Some people, once they've done this curve, they like to close it. You can close it. It's not necessary to close it, but you can. So some persons tend to close it on the x-axis. And so this is our cumulative frequency curve. So we have the cumulative frequency on this side, and we have our scores on this side. So this is how you draw your cumulative frequency curve using your upper boundaries and your cumulative frequency. So now that we have drawn this, we can use this one to estimate rather the median. Let's see if we can use our Q1, Q2, Q3. So let's write them down, Q1, Q2, Q3. We can estimate them from this, and then we go to the other question. So Q1 would be the lower quartile. Notice we have 100 numbers, 100 things on this side. And sometimes this graph is called a less than curve. I should mention that. because every time you start here on this axis, the x-axis, and touch the curve and go across, it tells you that number of persons got less than this, or that number of things are less than this. So if we should go from 30 here and go across, it would say 20 persons got less than 30 marks or something like that. So let's estimate our Q1. So Q1, this one is easy for us because we have 25, we have 50, we have 75, and this would correspond to our Q1, our Q2, and our Q3. And what we need to do now is to, from this line, go over to your curve, and you want to make use a broken line. You want to smooch that curve. That is, you want to touch it right there. Don't go through it, just touch it. And once you touch it, you drop your line down to your x-axis and read off the value there. So right now, this is telling me that this is 31. So my Q1 is going to be 31. My Q2, which is my median, is at the halfway point. And so I will go across in the same way as I did before and estimate, and then drop this down. And notice I said estimate because that's exactly what it is. Due to human error and other things, when we draw our graphs are not going to be perfect. And because we're using group distributions again, that makes it even more so. So these numbers are estimates and not actual. So our Q2 here is going to be, this is 35, so 36, I'm getting 36.5. And then my Q3, I can go across here, doing the same thing. And remember, sometimes CXC is going to ask you, if you get this question, to show how you get your answer by indicating on your graph. This is how you indicate on your graph, by putting in the broken lines and putting them in so that the person marking your paper can see them. All right, so here we are 40, 41. So this is telling me that this is like 42. So my Q3 will be 42. So this is how we can use it. Now let's go to the last question and see how we can answer some other questions that tend to be asked with cumulative frequency curves or less than curves. This is something taken from CXC. Use the graph to estimate the median. Here we have 80 numbers now. This is number of students. So we have 80 students, and these are marks that they got on an exam. All right, test scores for 80 students on an exam. So the halfway point, first of all, since there are 80 people, the halfway point is going to be 40. This one will lead us to the median. And if you want to find the interquartile range, or you need to work out Q3 and Q1, then the halfway point between 0 and 40 would be 20. So this 20 would lead you to your Q1, and the halfway point between 40 and 80 would be 60. So this number will lead you to your Q3. Notice I said lead you to, because it is not the median or the Q1 or Q3, but it will take you there. And so let's start with our median. So to estimate the median, we go from here and we go across, draw your broken line, go to your curve, touch the curve, and drop it down. So it's somewhere here. Somewhere there. I'm just going to round off this one and call it 21. Notice we have 2 centimeters to 5 again. So 2 tiny boxes there would make it 21. So I'm just going to estimate it at 21 marks for my median. The number of students who scored less than 23. Now remember I said this curve is also called a less than curve, because every time you start at the x-axis, draw a line to touch your curve and go across, it tells you what number got less than. So how many students got less than 23 marks? I'm starting at 20. This is 21. This is 22. So 23 would be here. At this point, let me use this red marker again because it's the brighter of all of them. So 23 would be this line. Just want to make sure where it stops. So there it is. Let me follow it back down. All right, 23. Very good. Now let me go across with this, and it's going to tell me the number of persons who got less than 23 marks. Right now I'm getting 50, 51, 52. So it's telling me that 52 students got less than 23 marks. And the number of students who scored more than 17 marks. So before we answer that question, we need to find out, because this is not a more than curve, it is a less than curve, but we can use it to find the answer. The number of students who scored more than 17. So this is 15, this is 16, this is 17. So let's go up to our curve to see what's going on there. And going up to our curve, here we go. Boom, here. We're going to go across. Remember, you need to stop on the curve and go across. What it's telling me here is that this is 20, so this is 25, 26. It's telling me that 26 students got less. Now the question is how many got more than 17? Now, how many students are in our group? We have 80 students in our group, so we simply say 80 minus 26, because if these students, 26 students got less than 17, it means that the others got more than 17. And so 80 take away 26, 6 from 10 leaves 4, and 2 from 7 leaves 5. So 54 students would have gotten a score above 17 or more than 17. And the interquartile range now, so they're asking us to find it. So the interquartile range, we already found our Q2, but we're not using it. So let's go ahead and find our Q1 and our Q3. Interquartile range, remember, is Q3, take away Q1. So let's do that. Our Q3 is starting here, going across. This is nice. So we get a nice number here. That number going down is 25. That's our Q3. So our Q3 is 25 minus our Q1. Go across here, touch this down. This is also a nice one. All right, so here it's almost 15. It's that line right before 15, which means that it's 14.5. All right, so that is 14.5. And 25 minus 14.5, let's say 25 take away 15 is 10. So this would be 10.5.